Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. It is a beautiful Friday in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'll be careful here. Looked like a car was about to jump in on me. Wanted to jump in on the conversation. You probably shouldn't be driving while you're on the phone, Christopher. People do it all the time. They're constantly text messaging, constantly vlogging, and my eyes are on the road. I wanted to talk about the video I just posted yesterday on the tragic case of Walter Scott, who was gunned down by a police officer who should serve a long prison sentence, if not worse, if convicted by the evidence of committing a heinous act and a crime. But what's interesting about it is I compared the Walter Scott tragedy to one of the Boston bombers who was gunned down, wasn't killed, but was shot in the throat, conveniently so he couldn't speak. That way he couldn't, talk, get any comments in, or maybe share any more evidence with the authorities, or more importantly, the general public. Things like him and his brother, his older brother especially, were working for the CIA, was sent overseas to engage in the act of terrorism on behalf of the United States. Kind of working like a double agent. They linked him to Chechen terrorism, but he was really working for the State Department before. You see, they don't want you to know the truth about these brothers. That the CIA was tracking both of them, especially the eldest brother, before the bombs went off in Boston. But aside from that, I compared the two cases because they're very similar. Walter Scott shot in the back while he was running away. I don't know why you'd be running from a cop. Big mistake there. Although he did not obviously deserve to die, and the cop obviously looks like he was in the wrong, shooting him in the back with fatal wounds. But the cases are similar in the fact where you have Walter Scott gunned down, illegally, it appears, unarmed. How many times has CNN told us that? Whether or not it was Trayvon Martin or Michael Brown. Unarmed! Walter Scott, unarmed! And so was the youngest Boston bomber, unarmed, in a boat. It kind of reminds me of that rap video they did on SNL. I'm on a boat, bitch, I'm on a boat. So he was hiding in a boat, unarmed, and he was shot at with what appeared to be automatic weapons, a firefight for over 8 minutes in a suburb of Watertown. His constitution suspended, his civil liberties suspended, and Americans don't care about that. They're not outraged that that happened at all. They're not outraged that there was martial law declared in Boston. They're not outraged they were taken out of their houses. They're not outraged that this youngest Boston bomber alleged suspect, who has since been convicted on 30 counts and may face the death penalty, was shot at illegally, unarmed. He was unarmed. And they had a dozen or so SWAT teams and officers gunning him down for 8 minutes. No one gives a shit. It's like his civil liberties and his constitutional rights were just suspended. But that's okay. So what's the difference here? Well, the difference is the mainstream media had already convicted both Boston bomber alleged terrorists in the minds of most Americans. That's the power that the media has. So since they were already convicted, according to the mainstream media, and that was put into the minds, the seed was put into the minds of innocent buying sheeple, which makes up most of America today, they didn't care because they were already guilty in the eyes of most Americans. Even though there hadn't been a trial, the only evidence we had was coming from the bullshit mainstream media, which gets things wrong all the time. Look at Brian Williams, for example. The guy's just a lying psychopath. He's been lying to all of our faces for years in a pretty suit, $2,000 suit, and a really good-looking tie, and Americans took him seriously. It just turns out it's total bullshit. They get things wrong constantly. But the brothers were already convicted in the minds of most Americans, even though they didn't go into detail about how they were linked to the CIA. They've been tracked for some time. It's highly probable that the eldest brother was even working on behalf of intelligence agencies here in the United States before the Boston bombing actually occurred. Nobody brings up any of the conspiracy elements, the fact that they're running a drill that day. There's so much, conspiracy around it. There's such a conspiratorial angle. But my point being, there's no difference between both of these cases. I would argue that the Boston bomber case, for example, is worse than the Walter Scott case because it affected everybody. It didn't just affect Walter Scott. Also, we can see the power of the mainstream media constantly jamming this black-white narrative, whites killing blacks. They never share with us the black on black crime, inner city in Chicago, Obama's former hometown. They never give us the alternate perspective. They only share with us and only cherry pick this white on black narrative. And lately they've been cherry picking a police officer narrative. The fact that, whether or not it's Ferguson, Missouri, or it is this latest Walter Scott episode in South Carolina. What's amazing about it, and what just shows you the power of the mainstream bullshit boob tube, is how they can plant this seed in Americans' mind, any seed that they want. And Americans will say things like, for the video I did yesterday, and there's nothing about that video that's racist whatsoever. I don't have a racist bone in my body. I'm a human being, but I'm not a racist. I'm not perfect, but I'm not a racist. People will call me a racist and say the video I put out yesterday is racist because I compared those two cases. That I somehow marginalized the death of Walter Scott. And I didn't do anything like that. I did actually the contrary. If anything, we should be learning from this Walter Scott experience. We should be learning from the Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin experience. We should be learning from the two Chechen terror-linked brothers, the alleged Boston bombers. That, again, just prove the point that you don't need guns, which the liberal radical left is always trying to pitch to us as the way and the reason these mass killings are implemented. All they had, allegedly, I guess now convicted, the youngest brother. The eldest brother's dead, so he couldn't talk either. The youngest brother shot in the throat. They simply just went to a Walmart or a Kmart, bought a couple pressure cookers from Martha Stewart online and murdered and maimed, allegedly, countless individuals. But again, the only thing that these stories prove is just how powerful the mainstream bullshit media is. They can't be trusted. They are pushing an agenda. They're pushing an agenda by the government. Obama is pushing an agenda. It's why he's a mouthpiece for this. He's always providing talking points for this. And he's providing that agenda on behalf of the large corporate interests that he represents. Hillary Clinton will be no different. And I hear she announces she'll be running for president. This former Secretary of State Department Benghazi Gate lying whore will be officially announcing her bid for presidency, I believe, over the weekend. I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere. Make it viral. Hard hitting it in your face. And click the link below to support our sponsor. Peace.